show me one Votorama amendment that was used effectively against somebody in a campaign. It's a crock. And generally, that is. I mean, Votorama is a charade.
At the end of the week, Washington empties out fast. Lawmakers, staffers, they're all heading home. But not before they stop here.
Hello and welcome back to the Punchbowl News Townhouse for another episode of Fly Out Day. I'm Anna Palmer.
And I am Jake Sherman.
The clock is racing on Capitol Hill as we head out to the August recess. Last night, Speaker Mike Johnson overcame big hurdles to pass a $1.1 trillion defense spending bill and put the next steps on Reconciliation 3.0 to the Senate. What's the game plan here, Jake?
Well, I don't know. It was a huge day for Mike Johnson, and give him credit. Yeah. He deserves a lot of credit here. Getting NDAA, a quasi stock trading ban, a budget resolution, all through the floor in one day is incredibly impressive. Passed the CR until December 4th. Also very important as we charge toward the funding deadline at the end of September. The question is, what's going to happen on the budget resolution? And what's going to happen with reconciliation? What's going to happen with the SAVE Act? And lucky for us,
we have a guest in the townhouse today who is Wisconsin. Senator Ron Johnson, who's been in the spotlight this week after Senator Lindsey Graham's passing. He is the incoming newly appointed budget chairman. It is going to be on his plate to get all of this done, Jake.
Yeah, does he want to do a budget resolution now? Are they going to do one before the August recess? Are they going to get it before the lame duck? We reported in the newsletter this morning, it seems unlikely that the Senate Republican leadership will get one before the lame duck. So we're going to put it all to him. We're going to talk about Wisconsin. We're going to plan to talk about Wisconsin, talk about the election in 2026 and what he expects in the midterm. Everything's happening right here.
A great guest for the week. And afterwards, we have Jackie Kucinich from the Boston Globe and NBC's Ryan Nobles to help us break down the conversation. We're going to get right to our conversation with Senator Johnson. But first, a quick word from our presenting sponsor, Boeing.
Presented by Boeing. As America celebrates 250 years, Boeing honors a shared journey of ingenuity. Today, that legacy powers 1.4 million jobs across all 50 states. That's how Boeing backs America.
Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, the chair of the Senate Budget Committee. Welcome to the Punchbowl News Townhouse and Fly Out Day.
Thanks for having me.
All right, this is your first week as budget chair. Congrats. You have a very full plate. The Pentagon says it needs $60 billion in new money, part of a $95 billion supplemental spending package. That's roughly $12 billion in money for farmers, $10 billion for the Save America Act. Do those totals seem right to you?
Well, actually, it's my second day.
Well, it's still your first week. Yeah.
So, again, you have to take a look at what they're actually asking for. You know, from my standpoint, I think the top priority of government is defense of this nation. Our men and women are in harm's way. The finest among us. We've, just had, I guess, 4 more tragically die. So we've never forced paying for a military supplemental ever, as far as I'm aware of. I don't see why we really need to do that now. Whether you support or not support the Iran war, I think you should support our troops, and I think they probably need the funding.
The conversation that you just brought up is whether it should be offset, right? And that's been a big point of contention in the House. There's some in your conference and some in the House, but mostly in the Senate, who say it's not enough. If we're going to do this, $60 billion is, and including John Thune, who say $60 billion is not a lot. There's in the farm aid, the $12 billion in farm aid. Some people say it actually should be $20 billion in farm aid. I mean, how do you take that?
So I think Chairman Arrington was working on a package.
Yep. And
then somehow the White House found out what he's working on, and they called him out to Camp David. And I think the White House took the pen on this one. This is kind of how I interpret it. And so this is what the White House is requesting. They're the administration. They've got the secretaries. They're the ones saying this is what they need. I think it's going to be easier to pass the smaller it is, particularly if it's not going to have pay-fors. And pay-fors are problematic in a short period of time. I think if we have enough time, and I think after an election, I think it'd probably be a lot easier too. So, you have to take a look at the reality of the situation right now. We have a short period of time. This is before an election. There are things we can do now there are additional things we can maybe do after an election.
How do you respond to Senate Majority Leader John Thune saying, the House passed their version, but we're going to work on government funding first, which probably puts any kind of budget resolution, reconciliation after the election? Well,
if we expect to do anything before the end of the fiscal year using reconciliation, we're going to have to do initial vote-a-rama, vote to proceed to a resolution. Okay, so that's why I've been in charge of the budget staff now for a day and a half, or a day. This will be my second day. But I've already directed them, start working on basically the Senate version of what the House passed, but also contemplate if Democrats refuse to fund the government, if they refuse to, right now they're talking about a 60-day CR, fine, but pass that. We need to pass that next week, so that we leave the last week we're in session here before the August recess. That if we have to, again, if they've also been talking about a defense supplemental as part of that package, but I heard Punchbowl just said that's off the table. So we're going to have to do this just to provide the defense supplemental. So we need to vote on a CR next week. So we have the following week open for a budget resolution.
Some of your colleagues say we shouldn't do another vote-a-rama before the election. You're familiar with that argument. It's tough. I mean, these things are tough politically.
Not really. I mean, show me one vote-a-rama amendment that was used effectively against somebody in a campaign. It's a crock. And generally, that is. I mean, vote-a-rama is a charade. It's the same political points that the parties make time and time again. Do it. I mean, we get up there and the same amendment offered 6 or 7 times. It's a charade. So if we do a vote-a-rama, my intention would be to do it. Start early in the morning, sit in your seats, knock yourself out, wear yourself out, and we're going to crank through this thing.
Be done by dinner time.
By noon. Particularly on the motion to proceed. They'll have another opportunity if we actually get to a real bill and final passage, do it again.
So you do think this is going to happen? You seem to think this is going to happen before the August recess.
I think we have to. Again, I think Democrats have shown us they don't want to cooperate in governing. They shut down the government for 42 days. They shut down DHS. They refused to fund CBP and ICE. They, for the first time in history, voted against proceeding to the National Defense Authorization Act. They completely sabotaged the appropriation process. Now, they're willing to agree to CR because I think they're betting that they'll take over the House and then the price of poker goes up. They'll be able to spend more money. Okay, well, fine. I guess we'll take their, whatever cooperation they give us. I mean, I don't like shutdowns. That's why I proposed to eliminate Shutdown Act. Well, I had the Shutdown Fairness Act. I mean,
you've been on that one for a while. I know that.
Yeah, I have been.
But can I just follow up with one thing? Thune has said, well, if they don't want to play ball on the CR, we'll put it in a reconciliation package.
Which is why we need to have that week, the final week, to work on, and I've told the budget staff, work on 2 reconciliations. One that pretty well mirrors the House with, whatever you have to do to Senate instructions, that type of thing. And then an expanded one in case we had to start funding what we want to fund in government. That's the risk the Democrats, if they continue to be so obnoxiously obstructionist, okay, fine. We'll have to do things to govern. I mean, we do have the majorities of the House and Senate. We don't control the Senate because of the 60 vote threshold. But if you're not going to cooperate, we didn't have the votes, for example, to end the 60 vote threshold on nominations. The Democrats were so obnoxiously obstructionist that President Trump couldn't even staff his administration. All of a sudden, we had 53 votes to end the filibuster on all nominations now. There's really not much left of the filibuster. If you think about it, I mean, we are taking reconciliation. I mean, if they don't fund the government, we'll take reconciliation and expand it even further. I've been writing about this, a reconciliation appropriation process. I mean, that's what we will have to do. Not because we want to do it.
Some have made that argument.
Because they will be forcing us to do it. So it's kind of up to them. So again, what I am suggesting, I'll be meeting with Leader Thune at noon today, is we need to vote on a CR no later than next week before we leave town. And we'll see if they're going to fund government. Again, it sounds like there's not going to be a defense supplemental. So then we're going to have to vote on the opening move to open up the reconciliation process before we leave town.
What's the likelihood? You say you don't like shutdowns. I think nobody likes a shutdown, but do you think we're heading towards one? Or you think this is just how you circumvent it?
Again, it makes sense to me for Democrats to cooperate with the 60-day CR. Okay, I don't particularly like it, but I think that's where we'll probably land. I mean, so I guess I'm not too worried about one at that point in time.
Okay.
Come December, who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be tougher. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, is planning for a fourth. They're not planning. He's saying he wants a fourth reconciliation package, and the lame duck. This, in his view, would cut waste, fraud, and abuse. Something you're familiar with, something that you've worked on in your time in the Senate. Is that feasible?
I think so. I would be fully supportive of it. Because again, we don't have time right now. Again, had I been budget chair, I think we would have been talking about even this reconciliation months ago. Okay. But again, you give Democrats a chance. I know John Thune wants a regular order appropriation process. So does Susan Collins. I mean, they've been working hard at it. They just have greater faith in Democrats than I have. So in order to really do what we want to do, to really understand what happens if we start opening up some of these committees to instructions, again, there is a fear that we might even backslide on what we got, the minimal improvements we made on things like Medicaid. By the way, we were falsely accused of slashing Medicaid, right? Medicaid, according to the Wall Street Journal, is up 10% this year.
Right.
Boy, aren't we cruel? So, and what we didn't have in the One Big Beautiful Bills, we didn't have the Nick Shirley video. We didn't have the example of Dr. Oz, partly because of Nick Shirley's work, but also what they're looking at in CMS. The fact that a third of hospice centers were in Los Angeles, a third nationally. So he stopped funding 400 of them. Not one complained. I mean, think of that. I don't know how much those hospice centers give federal. I think a lot of that's Medicaid money.
Yeah.
Now that's Medicaid money that's not available for disabled children. Okay. But 400 were being funded. You stop the funding. Not one complains. Now, if you're a legitimate hospice center, you'd have been screaming bloody murder, right? The fact that none of them complained said they're all at least 400 were fraudulent. So again, I think that fraud is rampant. We can't afford it. The lowest estimate of fraud per year is $250 billion by GAO. LexisNexis came into a subcommittee hearing. I didn't realize they did this kind of research. They pegged the number to $1 trillion. I don't doubt that at all. And we can't afford that. And the only way to reduce that number is to not spend it. Don't give it to those people because you can't recover through prosecutions. It's just impossible.
I want to shift gears a little bit. You've been critical of the president's tariffs on often more so than other Republicans, but you've said you're willing to wait and see if the strategy works. You obviously made big announcements on Canada this week. Has it worked?
Well, I think quite honestly, the president's free trade as well. I mean, we'd love to see a zero tariff world, but it has to be fair trade. And I think President Trump is exactly right. We have not been treated fairly by our trading partners. We've been very magnanimous, being the world's largest economy. And people have taken advantage of it, particularly China. And so what's interesting in Wisconsin, whether it's farmers, whether it's manufacturers who are being harmed by trade, they'll complain about it, that they'll, make us an exemption, but almost in a second breath, they almost universally say, but I understand what President Trump's trying to do. So that's why I've really not been critical of the tariffs. I've been concerned about them.
Yep.
We provide all these case studies to the trade rep, and they're very open to looking at these things. They're fully aware of the pain being caused by it. They're just trying to drive hard bargains and try and level the playing field. So again, it's an interesting dynamic here. From my standpoint, come from the business world, stability is the most important thing. Certainty, even more important than price level. You can handle higher prices as long as they're stable. Volatility is the worst thing. So the whole problem with the trade war is it just has created a level of instability and uncertainty, which I think, President Trump wants a strong economy. He understands that he's got it. Sooner rather than later brings stability and certainty to the economy. And
you're not worried for your colleagues who are up for re-election, because there are a lot of farmers who are feeling pain right now, right? And the markets are tough. You talked to Thune about it, others in farm states, that this is going to be one of the big challenges, and that there isn't stability, there isn't prices coming down.
And her parents are farmers.
My parents are farmers. I grew up on a farm.
I know. So, we just went to an event in Wisconsin with the president, and, all these farmers I was talking to, I was there early on. So I was talking to all of them, the exact same dynamic. They said, we understand and actually support what President Trump's doing. I'm not blowing smoke here. It's a really interesting dynamic. People realize our trading partners have been screwing us, and here's a president who's willing to do something about it. And it's not easy. They recognize it's not easy, just like they recognize the war in Iran's not easy.
Let me talk about the SAVE Act for a second, which has been above everything, probably the president's biggest legislative priority over the last couple months. Is it possible to get enough of the SAVE Act in reconciliation to make people happy?
So it's interesting. I was with Rick Scott and Mike Lee and a bunch of House Freedom Caucus guys last night meeting, and this was the topic. And Mike Lee, again,
sounds like a dangerous room.
One of the things I joke about the Senate is I had to get all this free legal advice. I used to have to pay thousands of bucks. I get it free as first class. So, Mike is our resident expert just legally, but he's also the author of the SAVE or the Save America Act, different versions of it. He's also, very, very well versed in Senate rules and parliamentarian rules. He was very confident. And, with the couple tweaks that he's going to have to make to this, he's very confident because we're adding funding to it that this will pass parliamentary muster. So, the House Freedom Caucus would accept what he's talking about. And then again, Mike was sounding very confident last night. That was good.
So is it the whole bill in your view, or is it the?
It's it's the House SAVE Act, not the full Save America Act. Because that just has issues right now. Again,
it has vote issues too.
By the way, I wouldn't discount that as long as, because I gave Mike Lisa Murkowski's op-ed to Strand, the Wall Street Journal. She makes a number of important points. Every state's different. I understand how mail-in ballots is really important for Alaska. So, Mike has worked with Lisa, said he's addressed 16 or 17 concerns. But again, I said, work with her again and see if you can get her vote on. And I was in the Oval Office and we kind of pitched this to the president too. I said, let's talk about reasonable restrictions on mail-in ballots. Yeah.
And not eliminating them all.
No mail. And then he puts the exceptions. I would have termed it differently. But that's what I'm telling you. I think Lisa would be, satisfied with reasonable restrictions, with maybe some exemptions for certain states that have different type of populations or spread out that type of thing. So again, I think there's a way to accommodate that. So I wouldn't, especially we have time, and I think Mike will work on this over August. And we get the resolution passed, then we start working on all the details, and you start rounding up votes. That's what you have to do.
And you come back in September and try to get the component parts out.
So you do a lot of work in August to try and make sure we got the votes for as strong a Save America Act as we possibly can pass. But again, I was really pleased by how confident Mike sounded about passing parliamentary muster on what he's thinking through.
All right, we are quickly running out of time. I want to talk a little bit about leadership in the Senate and then your home state. You were for Rick Scott in the leadership elections in 24. How do you judge Thune's performance?
That's a tough job. There's a reason I didn't run for majority leader. Okay. It's a really tough job. Speaker Johnson.
That's a tough job.
He's got a narrower majority, but then, Leader Thune has to work with, 60 vote threshold. So I don't know which one is tougher, quite honestly. It might be Thune's. Eventually you can kind of whip a majority of Republicans, particularly when the president's behind it in the House, and get the votes. That's, I think, probably why you did the budget resolution first in the House. Yeah. You've got a lot of lone wolves, I guess, in the Senate is the best way to do it, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about your state for a second. I have my problems with polling. I'm sure you do too, but we got to live with the polls that we've got. Marquette University's law school, which has a very reputable poll in your state, has Trump's approval ratings at 40 approve, 58 disapprove. Worst ever in Wisconsin. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, I'm not a political pundit, and I only got into this in 2010, but I've gone through 3 elections.
That's a long time.
But again, I run my election, then I do my job. Okay?
Yeah, I hear you.
But what I found in my 3 elections is, Marquette was pretty accurate the week before the election. Okay. Prior to that, and that's all kinds of polls.
Yeah.
My last election, I was supposed to win by 7 or 8% in some of the polls, and squeaked that one out. So I don't know what it's about. It's hard to poll. What you can reliably count on is these statewide elections are going to be close. And what's really weird,
what's the country we have?
No matter how many votes are cast, whether it's total 3 million or 2 million, the margin's 30 or 40,000 votes. It's really weird to look at that.
But we live in a divided country, right?
We do. And Wisconsin it's a divided state.
It is, yeah.
But what's good about it, though? We're really nice people.
You were.
I like with a smile.
Charles Krauthammer came in one time, gave a speech at Kohler, and he said, you always hear Minnesota nice. I say Wisconsin even nicer. And it's true. Because I don't get harassed. I mean, if people don't agree with me, they maybe look away. I can count in 16 years, a number of people coming up on one hand that have been disrespectful or snarly. So yeah, it's a real pleasure being.
And Milwaukee's beautiful in the summer. That's for sure.
Yeah, when people came to the convention, we're expecting 3 feet of snow.
I always think about that. So I'm from North Dakota. The same thing they did. They don't quite understand. But let's talk one last question here. Give us the case that Republicans keep the Senate. Do you think you will?
I sure hope so.
You don't want to be ranking member of the budget committee?
No, I'm much. Or permanent subcommittee investigations, which I'll hold. I mean,
well, and that we haven't digested this yet, but you have a report on COVID vaccine.
I mean, back on, we should have an entire segment on that.
Yeah.
But this is the largest government scandal in my lifetime, and media outlets are not covering it. It's not, other than I think Epic Times is the only newspaper that covered it as news. I've been on some shows, Fox Business, Fox News, they've interviewed me on this, but it hasn't been treated as a news story. And I think it's a massive news story.
Do you think you keep the Senate though?
Again, I hope so. I mean,
You're not a pundit, right?
Listen, I think what we need to do is we need to re-energize our voters. And I think it'll be my pitch to Leader Thune. Do this resolution. Mike's confident about this version of Save Act. That would energize our base. Okay. Because right now they are dispirited. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So we need to energize them by doing good things. And I think the House passed some good piece of legislation leaving town. And if we don't have a government shutdown, we can be in pretty good shape.
Last question here. Why are they dispirited? Why is the base dispirited?
Because people expect immediate results. Okay. There's no doubt about it that, the war in Iran has driven up gasoline prices. That if there's any product that people notice the price on, it's gas, because you're filling your tank up multiple times a week and stuff. And when it's $2.89 versus $4.50. So there's no doubt about that. That's been a drag. And we haven't passed the Save Act. That is a big, big issue with our supporters. They want election integrity, and it should be a completely nonpartisan issue. I think that's what's so frustrating about it. All we're asking is voter ID and proof of citizenship. What you have to do with the real ID. 80% approval. Why can't you pass that? Well, you can't pass because of the 60 vote threshold, and Democrats refuse to agree to any election integrity measure. And that should speak volumes. Our supporters understand that. Our supporters, this should be easy, and they're just not accepting the fact that it's not. And there are very good reasons for wanting to maintain the filibuster. Again, I've come out public saying we ought to end it because I don't think there's much left of it anyway. I don't see how the Senate could be more broken. But I understand my colleagues who would like to have the filibuster if Democrats get in this position and pass all their nation-destroying legislation. We'd like to be able to block it. Right. But again, in the difference in our conference is, I believe Democrats absolutely 150% will end the filibuster.
They tried. They weren't able to.
Yep.
Well, they've purged those two people. Okay. No, I mean, they're going to do it. So I think we ought to do it now to save America. That's I kind of like the name of that bill.
All right. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Presented by Boeing. As America celebrates its 250th anniversary, Boeing honors a shared journey of ingenuity. For over a century, Boeing has helped put our nation in the air and in space, from the golden age of flight to the final frontier. Today, that legacy powers 1.4 million American jobs and connects 10,000 suppliers across all 50 states. That's how Boeing backs America.
All right, Jake, we are back for the panel after a very interesting conversation with recently installed budget chairman Ron Johnson. We've got Jackie Kucinich from the Boston Globe, NBC's Ryan Nobles. Thank you both so much for joining us. A day and a half into the job and we got him, so I feel really good about this booking, guys.
What is that even? That's not an excuse. A day and a half, you should be rolling. Let's go. We got stuff to do.
Some Punchbowl news energy.
Yeah. News. Budget.
So, what was your big takeaway?
My big takeaway was he wants to do, okay, so the big push and pull right now in the Senate is, do you do a budget resolution before the August recess? Do you do a vote-a-rama before the election? We reported in the newsletter this morning that really the Senate Republican leadership doesn't want to do it until the lame duck session of Congress. They don't want to put people through a vote-a-rama. Ron John's theory of the case is to do a CR next week, fund the government to December 4th. And then the week after that, do a budget resolution with a vote-a-rama. He says we, meaning Washington, overplays the saliency, the political saliency of the vote-a-rama. He thinks that it's actually not that big of a deal. People put the same votes up over and over.
Easy for him to say when he's not up in a midterm.
I don't know. What do you guys think of that?
I think he's probably right and wrong. I think that depending on the race and depending on what type of competition that you have, I think there could be a few amendment votes that could come back to haunt you in an ad in a particular constituency that you need to win if it's a 2 or 3 point race. But in general, I agree with him. Most of these amendments are show votes. I think most voters understand that. And if you want to get something done, you have to go through that process. And it seems more and more that the only way, at least the Senate feels that they can get things done is through reconciliation.
I just think it's going to be interesting to watch him in this role because this is, I mean, well, no, truly, because you've seen in other instances where when someone who might be, we'll call him a lone wolf, but also a bomb thrower, occasionally goes their own way, becomes a leader, he's not in leadership as we would define it, but, you know, head of the Budget Committee, they tend to not moderate, you know, like go toward Democrats, but they tend to think of their other members a little bit more. And I wonder if he gets there. I was looking up something about him, and Lindsey Graham actually called him Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, very mad.
That's a great one. That's great.
But I think that how much his demeanor and his just like really that fiscal conservative tends to wane a little bit. We'll have to see, but I think it's going to be fascinating to watch.
The other thing that's going to be really interesting, right? Like, I mean, he's meeting with Thune today at noon, he said, but you know, how much sway does he have over the leadership? Because he's taking a pretty, specific timeline. CR next week, resolution, you know, saying that maybe they should just do another fourth. He's on board with, you know, the speaker saying we should do a fourth resolution after the election.
Here's what I think. I think that he believes the base is depressed, and this is a good segue because on Sunday it's 100 days out from the midterms, or I think it's Sunday. It's this weekend. He thinks that the Republican base is depressed, and the Save America / Save Act, whichever version you do, could pull them out of the doldrums and get them energized.
Why? I'd love to know why.
Yeah, because
what race?
They think that voter ID and citizenship checks are something that the base.
So if that's true, let's play that thought exercise out. If we truly believe that kind of the main tent poles of the Save America Act are going to drive Republican voters to the polls, then why not actually do that? Put a standalone voter ID bill on the floor. Put a standalone citizenship bill on the floor. Take out all this excess stuff that President Trump is demanding, like culling the voter rolls for the supposed fear of illegal immigrants voting. Because I think if you were really, truly wanted to A, fire up your base, and B, put Democrats in a very difficult position, you put a voter ID bill on the floor all by itself. I asked Chuck Schumer about this yesterday because they came out and talked about their concerns about the election. And I said, you know, Mr. Leader, would you support a voter ID bill? He wouldn't even entertain the question.
But he had said in the past that
he would, which is why I asked about it. So to me, they've gone too far with Save America. They've thrown all of that. He throws transgender issues in on that. And I just don't, and that's why it's stuck in the mud and why the base is frustrated.
But we're also not talking about free will here and for Republicans in Congress. I mean, Trump wants this. Stomp, stomp. He wants this. He didn't sign the housing bill because he wants this.
Right.
So in some ways, they sort of have to get behind or leave because he is not letting this go. Now, he might have to because it just doesn't seem in the form that he wants it. It's going to get through anywhere. It seems very, very DOA. But this is part of the overarching story of the Republican Party under Trump. And this is like the Save America Act is very indicative of something that a lot of them aren't really on board with, but they have to be.
But two thoughts here. Number one, I agree with you. It is a failure of the congressional leadership, and I think it's a strategic misstep to not have put just in both chambers straight up voter ID on the floor, see where it goes.
So I think Democrats, we've talked to them a lot on this show, saying they are for some of the narrower provisions.
I mean, it would be a very close.
Dude, look at this week.
Aren't there many states with already, in different iterations, there's several states who actually have them.
Right.
Yes. So and also remember, there was a stock trading ban bill this week that had voter ID in it. 13 Democrats voted for it either way. I mean, 13 is not a huge amount, but it's still.
And honestly, if you're a Democrat in a swing state or a swing district, it's almost, you can vote yes on it, and then it's going to get tied up in the courts anyway. So
That's what I was
there's
gonna
always
say. There's
the
always
possibility that it doesn't even impact the
Yes. So that's my number one point. My second point is Trump just couldn't. When the White House heard Chuck Schumer say that, they should have just jumped on the opportunity and said, great, let's do this. He couldn't take a win here. He wanted it all. This is what we've seen back to 2017.
But it goes back to the filibuster. I mean, that's all of his kind of obsession.
So if you're conspiracy theorizing here, is the reason
I'm not, but you can.
is the reason that he's made this bill so untenable is because he's looking for an excuse when Republicans lose in the midterm.
I don't think that's a conspiracy theory as much as it is and maybe you guys have a different view. I think if Republicans lose the majority in either chamber, he's going to say, if we had only done X, Y, Z, like I had said, we would have won the majority. Of course, that's not provable because we can't go back in time and edit things. So yeah, I don't know that he's doing it because
the only
of that,
reason, but it's certainly going to use that.
but I think in the future he could use that.
I feel like they could pass the Save America Act and everything he possibly wants, and if they lose, they're still going to get blamed for something.
They'll find something else to blame. Yeah,
But it's just, again, I find myself saying this all the time. I don't know who's going to win the majority in either chamber. All I do know is that history tells us Republicans have tremendous wins at their face. There's two generics out this week. Emerson is a D+11. D+11 is end for Republicans. You're losing a lot of seats in a D+11. And I think Fox had a poll last night that was D+7 on the generic ballot. Those are like, end world for
blaring.
Because remember, in 18, I think they won with a 6 or an 8 or something like that. 11 would be terrible.
But the dynamics have changed a little. I mean, the redistricting's made fewer and fewer battlegrounds. It's probably, we might be post-wave elections, but you're 100% right that it's such a very difficult hill to climb.
But because this president is so unpredictable, I mean, who would have thought he was going to tariff Canada again when you have a huge race in Michigan, for example? You have
Which is close to Canada, I hear.
Good, yeah, let's trade. In Maine, like it's a huge, like there's a lot of trade and a lot of just things that go on between these states. Unhelpful.
Not an ideal scenario.
Not what Senate Republicans were looking for. Let's get to our last segment of the show. What's not going to fly, Jackie?
Okay, so you guys probably heard about this. The Olive Garden had, we were talking a lot about the Save America Act. Well, Republicans were too, of course, this week, but they were comparing it to the bottomless pasta card that I'm sure Jake, you know what this is.
Don't have a bottomless pasta card.
Going to Olive Garden on Sunday after church was a big thing in my childhood.
But Republicans were equating the fact you have to show ID when you have your bottomless pasta card. So I can't give mine to Anna, and Anna can't use it for her bottomless pasta purposes. Whereas we know that, obviously the Save America Act has there's a lot more going on there than just a simple ID. Not the up or down you were talking about. That would be more of the pasta pass, not ballet. But in any case, Republicans talking about this and using this as a talking point, equating the two, it was as empty as breadstick calories. It is not going to fly.
Breadsticks are so good.
They're so good that I'll take them all day.
All right, Ryan, I know if you don't do that one.
there, bro.
I don't have any alliteration to go with or anything like that. Jackie does it again. So to me, what's not going to fly is using reconciliation to solve every single problem.
Amen, brother.
Every time they run into a roadblock, it's like, well, let's just push this through reconciliation. I mean, reconciliation was designed to be a very narrow solution to a very specific problem. Obviously, it's grown in scope over the years, especially because no party's ever going to get 60 votes in the Senate again. But the majority leader this week hinting that he might use it to fund the entire government for over a significant period of time. That's just not how it was intended. It's going to make life a lot more difficult. Vote-a-ramas, over and over and over again. You just can't solve every legislative problem with reconciliation.
Okay. It's not going to fly for Dems that Republicans are really beating them in the money game. I mean, the NRCC, with the NRCC, NRSC, CLF, SLF, all of the Republican organs are doing really well. This matters much more this year with the Supreme Court knocking down coordinated spending limits, where the party committees could play a much bigger role. It's a big deal. I mean, even though Democrats are on the individual side raising good money, the organs of the Republican Party are doing pretty well.
Mine's simple. I think what Ron John said about just the patience of the American people, they're okay. Tariffs stink, but it's okay. The price of gas stinks, but it's going to be okay. I just think the patience is up. I think that is a tough argument going into the last 100 days.
I don't know any voter that would describe themselves as patient right now.
You mean we don't live in a country where people are like, yeah, let's just see how it works out.
They want their never-ending pasta bowl, and that's it.
All right, we're going to leave
I
it
need
on
to get one of these cards.
Jackie, Ryan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Jake, what a great episode with Senator Johnson. We're going to be keeping a close eye on his tenure as he tees it up his meeting today with Senate Majority Leader John Thune. And how does he navigate these kind of differences of opinion about what the strategy should be for Senate Republicans?
I thought this was the segment where I review the fish show from last weekend and the MSG run this week. Is that we're not?
Well, that's later.
That's
That's by yourself.
Okay, that's when I'm in the press gallery talking to myself. Oh, weird. Okay, forgot about that. He's going to have a lot to navigate.
Yeah.
And I thought it was real interesting that he's huddling with the Freedom Caucus and all the Senate conservatives, Rick Scott, Mike Lee, trying to put together a plan for SAVE and all that stuff. I think that's real interesting. And Mike Lee is confident, although people are confident about things all the time that don't come true, but Mike Lee is confident that the SAVE Act as written could end up in reconciliation, would pass the muster of the parliamentarian. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not the parliamentarian. I'm not an expert on that. He's trying to convince Thune to go. He wants Thune to move quickly, and I
shall see.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, that is it for us today. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and share this episode with a friend. Thanks so much for watching, and
have a great day, great weekend. Fish at the Garden, 4 more nights. Stay safe, everyone.
There's only one more way to think about what everything